What's up, everybody? Today, we're going to be ranking War Thunder top tier premiums, rank 7 and up, in a tier list from S tier to F tier. S tier being the best, F tier being the worst. We're going to be ranking them on their flight performance, kill potential, and their grinding capabilities in War Thunder Air RB. I know a lot of you guys will not be looking for the entire video. You guys want to see specific plans for specific nations, so there will be timestamps in the timeline below. Anyways, guys, Christmas sales are coming up soon, so a lot of these planes will be 50% off, so feel free to watch the entire video. Let's get straight into it. Okay, starting off with the F5C. In my opinion, the F5C is the best top tier premium for War Thunder in the American tech tree. Some of you guys might disagree, so if you do, feel free to say so in the comments. But in my opinion, the F5C has amazing strengths, such as its flight performance. Now let's get into that. The flight performance of this thing is absolutely insane. This thing has insane maneuverability. It is really wiry, making it super hard to hit, and it also retains energy very, very well. You also have very strong guns. The guns, they hit pretty decently, and they are also very easy to aim. You also get 560 rounds, which is a lot of ammunition, so very beginner friendly. The only downside of this plane are two things. It is not too fast. It can break Mach 1, but basically can't go any higher. And you also get two A9Es, which they work. However, they just are pretty easy to dodge. They're not that hard to flare, and in general, they don't have that much range. But they do work under certain circumstances, and I think it doesn't really make the F5C any worse. So in my opinion, the F5C is just an amazing dogfighter, amazing gunfighter, probably some of the most fun you'll ever have in War Thunder playing F5s. Next plane, the F4S. F4S is probably the most sold plane in War Thunder, and for a good reason. I know a lot of people play this thing incorrectly. However, in my opinion, the F4S is also going to be an S tier below the F5C. This is because even though this thing doesn't have the greatest flight performance, it has a good missile kit of 8 missiles. 4 AIM-7Fs and 4 AIM-9Gs is not bad at all. These missiles are definitely very good, and at 12.0, you are a bit high in battle rating, but you can definitely make it work. This plane also has a pretty decent bomb loadout. You can carry all 8 missiles along with bombs, which is definitely something not all planes can do. And along with this plane's, I guess, flight performance decent enough for AirB, and along with with its 8 missiles, you can definitely get a lot of stuff done and get RP in this plane if you go for the air targets and not just focus on bombing. So remember, guys, do not focus on bombing in the Phantom. You have kill potential. You have the ability to get RP from going air to air, so definitely do so in the F4S. Anyways, one quick note, we are making planes based on their nations, so America First, then Germany, and so on. Timestamps will be in the description below. Also in the timeline, F20A. Now the F20A is the highest BR premium for America Tech Tree. This thing is rank 8, $80. That is the reason I do not recommend you guys play this plane. There are more viable options such as the F4S and the F5C than the F20A. Now the F20A, it has an F5 airframe with the engine of an F-16 basically. However, it is definitely not an F-16. The F-20A, while it is strong, you have decent missiles. The AIM-9Ls and the AIM-7Fs, you don't get that many of them. You only get 6 missiles, and you only get 5 if you want to carry enough AIM-7s. The thing about the F-20A is the F-5C has a good flight performance for its BR, but when you take that flight performance and put it in a plane like the F-28 and move it up to 12.7, your flight performance isn't as good anymore. You're competing against F-16s, the MiG-29s, and Gripens in an up tier. You will not be able to fight against those things at all. You have a good engine, but at the end of the day, your flight performance just won't be up there. And even though you are decently fast, you don't have that good of a kill potential, and this thing is also hella expensive, so I'm going to put this thing in mid-B tier. Now, next plane, A6E Tram. The A6E Tram being 10.7, is at a relatively good BR. You have AIM-9Ls. You can carry 4 of them if you want to not take a gun. I mean, if you want to take a gun, you gotta carry 3. So the thing is, the A6E has pretty decent missiles, the AIM-9Ls. However, everything else about this thing just sucks. You have terrible flight performance. You're slightly maneuverable, but you have the speed of like a 8.7 plane. This is pretty bad because it makes you a super easy target to hit. Along with your massive size, everyone just targets you because you are basically a free kill. This thing has a decent bomb loadout, but a lot of the times you will not be able to make it to your base. You're just going to get intercepted, or people are going to get there before you and take the bases first. So, in my opinion, this thing is a C tier, pretty mid, Only reason it's not lower is because it's at 10.7, and with the AIM-9Ls, you can make something work. Now, last premium for America, AV8B NA. This thing is essentially an AV8B plus, however, it does not have the AMRAMs and it only has AIM-9Ls. In my opinion, Harriers for premiums just aren't the best grinders. They're not really efficient, and they aren't really consistent, because consistency is also a key factor to grinding. You want to be able to get good RP, good kills, good SL every single game. However, the AV8B can't really do that. It's a Harrier. It's good acceleration, but it's super slow compared to other planes at 11.3. A lot of people love to target Harriers because they are essentially free kills. Harriers are not really easy to kill, and not really hard to kill. A lot of times in your average Araby game, you will get run down a lot by people, and you can dodge the first guy, but the second guy will just be too much. You'll be going too slow. You're gonna get gunned down. Now at 11.3, you have a decent kit of AIM-9Ls, but everything else, your flight performance just isn't quite there. So I'd give the AV8B probably a C tier. I'm gonna say it's below the A6E tram, and there just are much better options to fly than the AV8B. Next plane, MiG-21 Laser M. We're getting into the German planes. The MiG-21 is definitely your best option to grind German texture with. All the other options are probably just not quite good. The MiG-21 Laser M is just a MiG-21 bis. However, you do get your amazing, of course, engines. You have good acceleration. You have 6 R60Ms along with the option to carry R13s. However, the thing about the MiG-21 Laser M is the R60s just aren't the greatest. They can definitely work. However, they don't have the greatest range, and they do not have the greatest flare resistancy. Now, at 11.0, especially in down tiers, you will get kills with them, but it's not that consistent. And in my opinion, the MiG-21 Laser M would be a lot better if it had better missiles. But this is kind of your only option to grind Germany with if you want to play a premium. So I'm going to give this thing a high tier of high B tier or a low A tier. This thing is definitely better than the F-20A in terms of grinding, but not flight performance, obviously. Next plane, Tornado IDS. This takes no explanation. The Tornado IDS is a solid F tier. This thing absolutely sucks. You have two AIM-9Ls, which are decent. However, everything else just is trash. This plane has garbage flight performance, loses all its speed, and the gun is also not that great. It is quite fast, and it can carry a lot of bombs, but at the end of the day, you will just get targeted. People will be faster than you, and they will run you down, and you will die. Next up, SU-22 M4. Now, this is a recently added premium, and in my opinion, the SU-22 would be a solid C tier. Now, this thing, I would say, is actually better than both these planes in terms of grinding, because you can carry quite a lot of bombs. However, the SU-22 is probably one of the worst swing wings in the game. This is because of this thing's energy retention being not as good, and also it's quite a bus. It's not really responsive, but it is fast. It's a lot faster than a lot of the competition. But at the end of the day, when you want to grind Germany, just play the MiG-21 Laser M. It's just more worth it than playing the SU-22, because it's a striker craft. It's not meant to fly in ARV. You get 6 R60s, and you get a lot of countermeasures, but once again, the flight performance just is not good enough to compete with a lot of the other premiums. Next up, into USSR premiums, MiG-23ML. The MiG-23ML used to be one of the best top-tier premiums. However, it has gotten quite drastically nerfed over the past several months. These nerfs have included the radar nerf. The MiG-23ML radar used to be really strong, the MTI radar. However, nowadays, you only get the PD effect, the post-Doppler effect, if you look straight down into the ground. And also, the flight performance has been changed quite a bit. You lose a lot of energy, well, a lot more energy than you did before, and the turn rate is obviously not as strong. However, despite all these changes, the MiG-23ML would still be a very strong premium. I'm going to put it right here in the middle between the F5C and the F4S, because you are lower BR than the F4S. You have really good flight performance still, and the R24Rs, oh boy, are they nasty. I definitely recommend you to run R24Rs. I had a lot of fun in the ML, and I think you will too if you run the 24Rs. This thing is still very strong in flight performance, and you can beat basically everything in a dogfight. Next up, SU-39. Now, the SU-39 is just absolutely trash. I mean, when it comes to grinding USSR, you have two planes, MiG-23ML or the SU-39. I definitely recommend to play the ML. If you want to grind USSR, I repeat, play the ML. Do not buy this plane. There's no reason to buy this plane. It's not even good in ground RB. this plane will be lower than the Tornado on the list because it is simply just 1, a free kill, 2, it's at a super high VR. Of course, you have R73s, and that's basically all you get. That's your main selling point. Nothing else about this plane is worth anything. And even then, the R73s on a bad platform mean nothing. You'll be targeted, and by the time you shoot them off, you'll be dead. Next up, MiG-21 Bison. The MiG-21 Bison is one of the 2 planes you can grind out Britain with, and over the next year or so, Britain will be a lot more worth grinding because of the Eurofighters. And in my opinion, the MiG-21 Bison would probably be a solid B tier, higher than the MiG-21 Laser M. The thing is, this isn't quite an A tier because you only get 4 missiles. You have 2 R73s and 2 R27Rs. You can also carry R27Ts. However, in my opinion, having 4 missiles just isn't quite it at 12.3. At this point in time, you want to have at least 6, but having only 4 just hampers you quite a bit. Also, your gun is quite hard to aim, and having a MiG-21 BIS flight performance at 12.3, you are quite lacking against other planes. You lose your advantages you used to have. The 21 BIS used to have the advantage of acceleration and speed. At 12.3, competing against F-14s, F-16s, you lose your advantage of acceleration and speed. Anyways, nonetheless, this is definitely a plane you want to fly if you're grinding Britain, because next up we have the F4 Junk. This plane is absolutely garbage. I mean, it's not that bad, but in comparison to a lot of the other planes you can use, it is definitely not quite it. You're at 12.0 and you do not have the performance of the F4S. The differences are you don't have the leaded edge slats on the wings, meaning you don't turn as well. You also are lacking the AIM-7Fs. You only have the AIM-7 E2s basically. They're called RB70. They're called Skyflash DFs. My bad. They are basically worse versions of the AIM-7F. And in my opinion, this thing just isn't really strong in ARB. I'm still gonna give this thing a high C tier because having aim missiles, you can still make it work. But being 12.0 and being British, this thing just really can't compete against a lot of the other premiums on this list. So when you grind Britain, I recommend you to play the Bison. But if you do really just want to go Brandon mode and go bombing, sure, play the F4J UK. It's not that bad, but at the end of the day, if you want to have fun, go for the Bison. Anyways, on to Japanese planes. We have literally one plane, the F4 EJ80TW. Now, this thing is probably one of the lowest BR Phantoms in the game, not including the F4C. This thing is 11.0. You have AIM-7Es and AIM-9Js. However, the AIM-7Es, they are not the greatest. I'll tell you guys why. The AIM-7E basically takes a long time until it can start pulling. And it does pull very hard, but it takes 1.8 seconds. By that time, a lot of your opponents will have evaded the missile already. So in my opinion, this thing might not have the greatest radar missiles, but it definitely is at a low enough battle rating to make it work. Even though you will be pretty frustrated playing this plane a lot of times because the missiles just are not going your way, I think being at 11.0 and having the flight performance of an F4, even though you have a flight performance of basically an F4J, you do have the benefit of being at a low BR and having a good amount of missiles. So this is basically your only option if you want to grind Japan. I'll give this thing a B tier. If you're gonna play Japan, you should probably buy this plane. You can also buy the T2 and the F1. However, I just wouldn't recommend playing those planes. Now, next plane, J7D. J7D used to be one of the worst planes you could buy, and that is because it was super high in BR. It was not at the BR it was supposed to be, but now it has got to move down to 10.7. Why is this significant, you may ask? Because at 10.7, the J7D has the flight performance of the MiG-21 SMT, which, as you guys know, is really good for the BR, and it also gets just better missiles. This plane gets PL-7s and PL-5s. The PL-5s are already very strong. They're super fast. They have high flare resistancy and have decent-ish range, and the PL-7s are just all-aspect PL-5s. This thing is a beast at 10.7, and you're going to have a lot of fun and success in this thing. The one downside is obviously you don't have that good retention, and your bomb loadout isn't as much, but when it comes to grinding China, I definitely recommend playing this plane above the A5C, because you get obviously more rewards, and you're going to have a more successful run in the J7D. So if you want to buy a top tier premium for China, go for the J7D. My opinion, this thing would be probably a high A tier. Next plane, AMX A1A. Now, this plane is at 11.3 and you have the speed of a saber. Alongside of that, you don't even have good missiles. You have the Piranhas, or the Piranhas, I don't know how to pronounce it. they pull 45 Gs, but in game these missiles take like half a second to ramp up to their full pull time, and by that time a lot of the planes you're shooting at will be already out of sight. They'll be out of their missile seeker head, meaning it can't pull back in. So that's the problem this plane has. The missiles, even though they can pull really hard, they just don't get the opportunity to pull. Now, one more thing about this plane is the gun. Your gun is a Vulcan, which is a good gun, however you only get 300 rounds. The Vulcan fire rate is extremely fast, and you will run out of ammo really, really quickly. So the AMX A1A just isn't the plane to fly if you want to grind Italy with. In my opinion, that would be the F104S. So we're going to put the AMX in F tier. This is definitely probably been in between these two planes because, you know, it still is relatively fast. It's not that hard to kill. Well, not that easy to kill, but, you know, you have decent flight performance, but when it comes to 11.3, it is just not compatible against other planes. Now, F104S TAF, this is what you want to grind if you want to grind Italy out. There isn't too much of, I guess, an incentive to grind Italy right now, but I think the F104S TAF is your best option. I know, it's an F104, it will not be the greatest. The F104s have gotten nerfed in the past few months, basically. They lose a lot of speed, the retention is a lot worse. However, in my opinion, if you do want to have a better grinding time, play the F104S. This plane, in my opinion, would probably be low B tier. This is because you're at 11.3 and you have a decent missile loadout. You get AIM-9Ls and a Speed Ace. Of course, you don't get a PD radar, and the Speed Ace aren't the best. However, having AIM-9Ls and being super fast, you can definitely make this plane work. Your flight performance really isn't it, but you can definitely do a lot in this plane. You have a decent bomb load, you're super fast, you can get to bases quickly, and in this plane, if you stay fast, keep your speed, you can basically, it's really hard to kill you, and you will have a good time in the F104. Even though this plane isn't the greatest in flight performance, I would definitely recommend this over the AMX. Anyways, SAB-35 Draken. The J35XS used to be pretty strong, and Drakens in general were really strong. The only problem with them was that they got nerfed. They don't pull as hard as they used to. That was their really, really good selling point. They pulled super hard. Nowadays, the Draken doesn't do that. This plane has a really, really bad gun. The damage is like bipolar in my opinion, but when it comes down to aiming, it is really, really hard to aim. It's also side-mounted, making it even harder to aim. This plane also gets 6 9Js. That's actually a good factor. AIM-9Js at 10.7 are pretty viable, and having 6 of them is definitely more than enough, so you have a good missile kit. When it comes to flares, though, you only get 12. 12 countermeasures, it's 12 pops, but obviously it's just sometimes you will run out and you will find yourself getting clapped. One more thing about the SAB-35 is the Draken flight performance just isn't quite it. This plane loses a lot of speed and you don't turn that well. So in my opinion, the J35XS would probably be a good C tier, high C tier. However, it just wouldn't be quite up there with the B tier. Next up, J837DI. There are only 2 options to grind Sweden with right now, and both of them aren't too well. However, in my opinion, the J837DI is the worst option. You're at 13.0 with 6 missiles. Now, that's not that bad. However, being a J837, having that battle flight performance, you lose to the F4J. That's crazy. If it goes prolonged, you will lose to an F4 junk. You can obviously beat it easier if you take the fight early and just turn into them, but at the end of the day, this thing has terrible flight performance. You lose so much speed, and it's just really hard to position yourself, and this thing only gets 4 AMRAMs, and you have AIM-9Ls for your IR missiles, so no IRCCM. You have decent radar missiles, but when it comes down to overall flight performance, this thing will not get that much done. You are a terrible platform, and it just really isn't it, especially compared to other 13.0. It just is not strong at all. This thing will lose to everything. Even things that are whole 2 BRs under it will beat it in a dogfight, which is crazy. Next up, we have the Kafir Canard. Oh, one side note, if you want to grind Sweden, definitely take the J35XS over this thing. Anyways, Kafir Canard. The Kafir Canard is actually, in my opinion, one of the best planes you could use to grind out Israel with. Now, Israel isn't really too worth grinding out right now, especially if you have the American tech tree. However, the Kafir Canard is one, it's super fast, it doesn't bleed too much speed, and it is one of the best delta wings in the game. You only get 2 M9Js and 24 flares, but this thing is definitely quite strong. You have BR of 11.0, which is a little bit high for this thing. It used to be 10.3, and that is the reason why I'm putting it beneath the J7D, because you're pretty high in BR. But at the end of the day, this thing is very consistent when it comes to grinding, and you basically rock a lot of planes in dogfights. This thing will give you a good time in ARB. Just be careful about ripping your wing, and you also have decent bombing loadouts. Next plane, the F1C. This is France's rank 7 premium plane. Now the F1C, it used to be extremely good, but it got moved down to 12.0. No, it got moved up to 12.0, I should say. This plane is no longer as strong. However, because the F1Cs were buffed in the last year, this plane, flight performance-wise, is better than the F4C. This thing used to lose to an F4C. Think about that. F4S, I mean, it's better than the F4S. Now, the Mirage F1C has basically only 2 viable missiles, the Magic 2s. You have radar missiles, the 530Fs. However, the 530Fs just really aren't it. They don't have they have a CW seeker head, which means that they get chaffed by one chaff. They basically get defeated super easily. So only having two viable missiles just doesn't make this plane very strong. However, the F1C has decent enough performance, and you are quite fast with a lot of countermeasures. So this is actually, in my opinion, a pretty decent plane to play with. I'm gonna put this plane A tier in between the Kfir and the J7D, because in my opinion, this plane actually is quite effective in ARB when it comes to getting kills. You just need to know what you're doing to a certain extent. Now, this is the final list, so if you guys want to pause the video here, feel free to take a look at this. Now, thank you for watching to the end of this video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.